So yoga has a lot of misconceptions about it in terms of how it's presented in the West these days. Unfortunately, it's usually all about asana, which are the physical postures, which of course are a huge and vital part of yoga. But what a lot of people fail to know or even get really told about or it doesn't really get portrayed a lot is that yoga is really about the mind. And if you go and read the Yoga Sutras, which is kind of where yoga came from and began, it was very much about the mind. So Patanjali, who wrote The Mind, was questioning what is the nature of human suffering, or why do we as humans suffer? And of course, during that time, different teachers answered that in different ways and created these schools of thought. But he answered that question with the response that it is the mind. The mind is the cause and the root for human suffering. And so when he went on to write the Yoga Sutras really explore the qualities of the mind, the conditionings of the mind, the trappings of the mind. But of course, they don't just stop there, and they then go into how we can solve those problems. So how we can direct the mind, how we can influence the mind, how we can make it more in one single focus and without being distracted, so that we can ultimately attain enlightenment. But of course, another word to use, if that word doesn't sit right with you, is true clarity in its purest form. That is actually the aim of yoga. So the asanas are really a tool to kind of help us to reach that, and so we spend a lot of time there. But we also use the asanas because we want to help release the tension in our body. So through the habitual ways we've developed in moving and processing or not processing emotions, some of those have been trapped and creating certain blockages in our body. So the way that the asanas are used is to actually unblock those blockages and allow your prana, your life force, your chi, your ki, whatever you want to call it, to flow in its optimal way. So that is why it's not that uncommon in yoga to experience a physical release or, of course, a mental or emotional release, because it's working on all those levels. And another use, of course, of the asana is to train the mind to come back into the present moment, and to train the mind to realize that it's not its thoughts. So a lot of the time we have that association with our thoughts almost glued. We are our thoughts. We think we are all those thoughts, and we think those thoughts to be true. And that, of course, reflects our reality. But through the practice of yoga, you're moving away from being absorbed in the thoughts, in the vritti, chitti vritti of our thoughts, and the fluctuations of our thoughts. And of course, you're using the breath and you're using the physical postures and the sensations they produce in the body to come back into the present moment. From that moment, of course, when you're in the now, you're no longer in the thoughts, and so you have a bit of distance and ability to start to see the thoughts a bit more objectively. And of course, from that, go on to the process of bringing about that true clarity, because you are no longer your thoughts. And you can bring those other practices of yoga, which is using pranayama, which is using different meditation techniques, to really inquire to who you really are. So that's just a little taster of what yoga is really about. I'd love this to be more seen and talked about, and so I thought I'd create this video. Hope it helps. Namaste.